Hello and welcome to another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Lateau, aka The Wizard. Hello and a good late night evening for Sunday, August the 13th. This is another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Lateau, aka The Wizard. Our mind, and actually more accurately, our subconscious mind, is hardwired to make sense of the world around us. And so it's very much a answering machine. And so what I mean by that is whatever information that our current present moment experience is giving us, our subconscious mind tries to make quote unquote sense of it. So it tries to answer the question, and I tell you the number one question it tries to answer, or it wants to answer, is why. It takes in this information and it tries, actually it doesn't try, it does. Work with it, mold it, align it with our belief systems, and it creates the why. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed how interested we are in why? Often even more than maybe some other questions that should be asked, but we want to know why. How many times have you heard this? And it's usually when something quote unquote bad has just happened. That's right. When something bad happens, the first question we try to answer, or we have this desire or almost a need to answer, is why did it happen? Not even so much what happened, but why it happened. One of the biggest questions that our subconscious mind and our conscious mind needs to answer, the question that you need to answer is why. And you see, so often, those questions that are being answered are the wrong questions. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, in a nutshell, in our subconscious. So for me, our mind, in another nutshell, our mind is divided into two categories. That piece of it that we're consciously aware of, i.e. our conscious mind, and that piece of us that we're not consciously aware of, i.e. our unconscious mind or subconscious mind. It's the same field. We're just consciously aware of a very small portion of it. And the much greater portion of this field that we're playing on, which is just as real, is simply outside of our awareness. That's why we call it subconscious. So it's just as real to us as our conscious mind. So what happens is the information comes in, and without us doing anything, right? Even if we're not asking the question why or trying to make sense of the world around us, our subconscious does. And one of the primary tools it uses to do that is the truths that we have created or allowed to be deposited into us about the world around us. So, what's a truth? Well, a truth is a rule or a law, I suppose you could call it, an absolute that, and you've heard me if you've listened to any of our past shows on the Convergence Media Network, you will have heard me talk about building our foundation of faith. And our foundation of faith is just that. It's a foundation, and it's built with all these bricks. And these bricks, or truths for our life, is the foundation upon which we observe our current present moment experience, and then we also create in our current present moment experience. So for instance, I'll give you one of these bricks, or one of these truths. So one of these truths is gravity. Okay, that's very simple, right? But one of the bricks in your foundations, which reside in your subconscious, is there's this thing called gravity. And if I picked this pen up on my desk and I held it out and I let go of it, the pen would fall. Now, when my subconscious receives that information, it observes that the pen fell. And then it answers the question, or it makes sense of, why did the pen fall? So what it does is it goes back to these truths. And it says, okay, why did the pen fall? Well, one of the truths that we have is there's this thing called gravity. Oh, okay. So that's why the pen fell. And now it's done. You see, once our subconscious mind makes sense according to its understanding and its foundations of truths, right, wrong, or otherwise, doesn't matter. Once it makes sense of something, then it's done, right? Because it doesn't re-answer the question once the question is answered. But you see, the issue is sometimes we're asking the wrong question, or sometimes we're allowing our subconscious to pose a question and answer it, rather than having us consciously choose a different question. This often happens when consciously we don't understand why some experience is happening. Here's a really common one. So one of the studies that I've been embracing, even just in this last week, is this concept of why it is, see, there's that why question, right? Is this whole thing about when you start to introduce change in your life, especially if it's significant change, that it seems like as soon as you have some clarity on that, as soon as you choose to start believing it, and especially if you start to take steps based on that belief, for whatever reason, the opposite of what you're working for shows up. Right? Not even just resistance, but it's like the exact mirrored image of what you're working towards shows up. And of course, what happens? We try, and our subconscious at the same time tries to make sense of it. You see, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense, because you see, consciously, we may know, okay, if it's manifesting something, I know I'm doing the manifesting steps right. I'm following it to the letter by the book. Why is it that the exact opposite of what I'm trying to work towards is showing up? And you see, so then we try and answer that question, and we just flat out can't. Because you see, what's happened is we've started to build some new truths. As we study manifesting concepts, what we're doing is we're learning, we're growing, we're actually now putting specific conscious bricks in our foundation of faith, or the truths that reside in our subconscious mind. So you see, what happens is we start to consciously build an addition or replace some bricks in our wall with some that align more with the direction we want to go, i.e. some manifesting principles that we want to stretch and grow into. So then we're doing it, but the experience we're experiencing is the exact opposite. And we go, that doesn't make sense. How many times have you said that? How many times have you looked around and you go, that just doesn't make sense. I don't understand why this is happening. Why is this happening? And so often when I call it, we ask from a place of concern rather than curiosity. So what I mean by that is, let's say you currently have some health and wellness challenges, and you want to manifest a more enhanced health and wellness in your life. And so you do all the visualizing, you do everything. And then for some reason, these little, maybe they weren't so little, aches and pains or physical issues that you have, they don't get better, they actually get worse. You see, and we look at this and we go, you see, and in a case like this especially, we don't even so much go, why is this happening? What we do is we go, why is this bad thing happening? Why is this process not working? And this is where understanding that so often we're not asking the right question really comes into play is when we are working towards something new and the opposite of shows up and we go, why is this not working? Why does this always happen to me? Why is the opposite of what I'm working towards showing up? Do you see how we're asking that? I like to say from a place of concern, because we go, I don't understand. Why is this happening? As opposed to curiosity. And curiosity sounds like this. I wonder why it appears like the opposite of what I'm working towards is showing up. Do you see the difference? One place we were asking from a place of concern. The second time we asked from a place of curiosity. The first place, why is this always happening? Concern. The second, curiosity. I wonder why it appears this is always happening. You see the difference? You see, now what happens is the first one, we have judged or labeled our experience. Yes? We go, I could extrapolate this and go, why is this bad thing happening? Because that's what we're really saying. When we're asking from a place of concern, 9 times out of 10 is because we have judged whatever we're asking the question about as being something that's unwanted or bad or undesired, right? And you see, that's an unanswerable question because it's the wrong question. You see, this is it. Because when we slip into that questioning from judgment, it's very difficult to find a creative answer. But if we can step outside of judgment, and for me, often the first question is, so what if this thing, fill in the blank, that's happening isn't bad? What if the process isn't broken? What if things are working the way they're supposed to be? Now, initially you go, okay, that doesn't make sense. Why is that? Because your subconscious is designed to make sense of your current experiences, often using old truths. And you are introducing new truths. And basically what you're saying is, when you go from a place of concern, why is this not working? You're going to validate the old truth. If you're looking at validating the new truth, then do your best to let go of the whole bad piece and go, so what if the process is working? What if I haven't done anything wrong? What if this thing that I've labeled bad isn't bad? Now you see how that really changes the whole face of things. Because now you're asking from a place of curiosity. You see, I find when you ask from a place of curiosity, you're actually expanding. You're actually allowing your mind and your subconscious mind to start to use the new truth to understand the experience rather than the old one. So you see, when I stop asking, so why is it that when I try and manifest this, it's like the opposite of always shows up? When I change that to, well, what if the system isn't broken? What if I'm doing nothing wrong? So then I wonder why this seems to keep showing up. It might sound subtle, but often those subtle shifts are what introduce the biggest changes. And it's when I discovered, to finish my example, something called the law of polarity. And so often, when we're choosing to introduce something new, we often will see the opposite of. Why? Because what it's doing is, it's actually that old truth being released from our being. I like to think of it almost as drawing an infection out. That infection needs to come out through the surface. And you see, when I didn't ask from that place of concern, I asked from the place of curiosity, all of a sudden I come up with all sorts of different answers. I come up with the answer that actually, when the opposite of shows up, that's one of your best indicators that the manifesting process is working. Because in order to get to what you want, because what you want and what you don't want are two sides of the same thing, different polarities. In order to get what you want, so often the old needs to be released to make way for the new. And so we initially see or have the appearance like things are getting worse before they get better, which changes the whole landscape of everything. And I didn't do it trying to answer the old questions. I did it from choosing to ask new ones, new questions that aligned with my new truths. Sometimes the issue is not that you don't have the right answer. The issue is you're asking the wrong question. Something to think about. This has been another episode of Ask the Wizard After Dark. I'm your host, Russ Latow, aka The Wizard.